An advanced native culture built massive cliff dwellings and road systems across the southwest, then largely vanished from those places by the late 1200s. What forced them to leave? The term Anasazi is actually an outsider Navajo word meaning ancient enemies, a label many modern Pueblo people reject. Instead, they are known as the Ancestral Puebloans, a highly organized society that transformed the high desert of the American Southwest. Between 850 AD and 1140, this civilization constructed massive stone complexes across Chaco Canyon in northern New Mexico. At the center of this world stood Pueblo Bonito, a monumental great house rising up to 4 stories with hundreds of interconnected rooms and ceremonial plazas. Building on this scale required massive coordination. Teams transported over 200,000 wooden beams from forests up to 50 miles away. From this hub, an engineered road network stretched across the region, including the 30-kilometer Great North Road. While archaeologists debate whether these straight, cleared corridors served as trade routes or sacred pilgrimage paths, they clearly connected far-flung communities. The ancestral Puebloans also tracked the cosmos with remarkable precision. At Fajada Butte, the famous Sun Dagger petroglyph uses sandstone slabs to cast light patterns marking solstices and lunar cycles. Chaco operated as a bustling, interconnected center of trade, architecture, and science, linking outlying settlements across the region. In southwestern Colorado, a different regional center took root. Between 1190 AD and 1300, communities built stone towns directly inside the sandstone alcoves of Mesa Verde. Settlements like Cliff Palace required advanced engineering, featuring multi-story stone rooms, circular kivas, and secure storage granaries built into sheer cliff faces. Residents accessed these vertical homes using hand and toe trails, wooden ladders, and narrow talus entries. These protected settings likely served a dual purpose, acting as shelter from harsh weather and defensive positions during periods of social tension. Life on the mesa tops and canyon floors relied on a diverse agricultural system. Farmers cultivated maize, beans, and squash, using stone-check dams and terraced garden beds to trap sediment and slow down seasonal runoff. These localized water management strategies, combined with natural springs, secured a reliable food supply. Mesa Verde was also active in the broad Southwest Exchange Network. Excavations have recovered obsidian from the Jemez Mountains, marine shells from the Pacific, and elite items like turquoise and macaw feathers. All of this farming, engineering, and trade thrived without a centralized state, proving that a highly cooperative society could organize on a massive scale without a ruling elite. Dendrochronology, the science of analyzing annual tree growth rings in preserved roof timbers, reveals that the end of monumental building did not always mean the immediate end of living in these great stone communities. In Chaco Canyon, the massive construction project slowly ground to a halt by 1150. Yet inside Pueblo Bonito, archaeological layers suggest the final residents had already departed decades earlier, around 1126. The decline of the Chacoan system was a drawn-out, generations-long reduction in occupancy rather than a single sudden evacuation. In contrast, the communities of Mesa Verde followed a completely separate developmental timeline. Its iconic cliff dwellings flourished throughout the 13th century, with builders cutting and placing structural beams as late as 1280, long after Chaco fell silent. When abandonment came to Mesa Verde around 1300, it occurred over a much shorter, more intense interval. These staggered timelines prove there was no single departure date for the hundreds of communities scattered across the region. An empty center did not mean a culture ended. It simply recorded a strategic change in residency. Families carried their traditions, farming technologies, and beliefs to new areas, leaving behind the unresolved question of which compounding environmental pressures and social shifts made remaining in these historic canyon homes increasingly impossible. Reconstructions from tree rings, lake sediment cores, and pack rat middens reveal a 200-year span of severe, repeated dryness starting after 1100, culminating in the late 13th century mega-drought. Lowered water tables and dry soils made maize harvests increasingly unpredictable, disrupting traditional planting and harvesting schedules. Yet, this resource stress did not affect every community in the same way. In response to food insecurity, families actively adapted. They shifted their settlement locations, altered crop storage patterns, built sophisticated water capture networks, and relied more heavily on wild desert plants. Alongside the drying climate, physical signs of social friction appeared. Excavations have revealed defensive architecture, burned structures, scattered projectile points, and skeletal trauma. These indicators have clear limits, and the scale of regional conflict remains uncertain. While they reveal localized clashes and rising social anxiety, they do not prove a single coordinated regional civil war or an outside invasion. Rather than being passive victims of climate, these communities made active choices. Environmental stress did not automatically trigger collapse. Instead, it intensified existing social challenges. Migration became a calculated strategy, a planned, logical movement toward reliable water sources, stronger community alliances, and more sustainable agricultural opportunities. To establish a sudden regional catastrophe, the archaeological record must show a consistent destruction layer, a tightly aligned calendar date across all settlements, and a uniform physical impact. Yet, physical evidence for comets, cosmic impacts, or devastating earthquakes is absent. No convincing impact craters, tektite layers, or shocked minerals exist in the geological strata of the Colorado Plateau. While ashes and scorched timbers appear in several great houses across Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde, these burned structures do not confirm a single region-wide disaster. Instead, local fires are equally compatible with kitchen accidents, localized conflict, or the intentional, ritual burning of buildings during planned departures, rather than an all-consuming firestorm. Similarly, claims of sudden invasions by nomadic groups like the Apache or Navajo fail the test of chronological alignment. The material footprint of these external populations in the Southwest postdates the primary depopulation of major centers by decades, proving that outside conquest was not the primary cause of the ancestral migration. At Cowboy Wash, near Colorado's Sleeping Ute Mountain, excavators in the mid-1990s uncovered a cluster of 12th century pit houses that sparked intense debate. Dating to around 1150 AD, the site yielded human bones bearing cut marks and fracture patterns that some researchers initially interpreted as evidence of systematic cannibalism. However, rigorous taphonomic analysis offers alternative explanations. Forensic examinations suggest these markings can result from post-mortem animal scavenging, secondary burial practices, or ritual defleshing rather than culinary processing. Critics also question the molecular evidence, pointing out that key organic residues may have been left by wild predators rather than humans. Pueblo descendants and scholars argue against sensationalizing these isolated sites. They view Cowboy Wash as evidence of localized, high-stress conflict during a severe drought, rather than a regional ritual catastrophe. In Pueblo oral traditions, these episodes are remembered as painful moments of social disruption that prompted families to reorganize and migrate. The physical record shows communities responding to changing conditions over time, choosing to move toward new homes rather than being destroyed overnight. The migration away from the Four Corners was not a single, desperate flight. Instead, it unfolded as a wave-like, non-linear movement of communities over generations, guided by kinship ties, the search for reliable water, shifting political alliances, and sacred geography. Families did not march in a straight line to a single destination. They paused, built temporary settlements, farmed the land, and moved again when the seasons or spiritual signs demanded. Because of this fluid history, archaeologists and tribal historians do not try to draw a simple one-to-one line connecting any single ancient ruin to one specific modern Pueblo nation. The ancestry is shared, tangled, and collective across many communities. Modern communities carry forward clear continuities from these ancestral homelands. This legacy lives on in the distinct styles of painted black-on-white pottery, the preservation of expert masonry techniques, and the knowledge of dry land corn farming. It persists in native languages, ancestral place names, and oral histories that map onto ancient geographic features. Cultural traditions, ceremonial practices, and spiritual connections remain intact, maintained through generations without exposing restricted, sacred knowledge to the outside world. This ongoing connection reveals that the empty stone dwellings of the past are signs of relocation rather than extinction. Today, this history is carried forward by distinct sovereign nations, including the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, Picuris, and Rio Grande Pueblos, each maintaining its own traditions. For the Hopi, these ancestors are the Hisatsanom, the people of long ago. Their oral histories are not folklore awaiting scientific validation, but living frameworks that record generations of movement. This ancestral link is increasingly validated by collaborative science. A tribally led genomic study published in 2025 revealed a direct genetic line between ancient individuals from Chaco Canyon and modern members of Picuris Pueblo. This convergence of DNA and memory supports the enduring Pueblo perspective. We have always been here. The empty cliff dwellings and stone great houses represent a deliberate reorganization, proving that a civilization did not vanish, but simply chose to build anew elsewhere. The empty stone structures of the Southwest are not monuments to a vanished race, but testaments to resilience. When we choose mystery over living history, we silence the descendants still carrying this legacy forward. They never vanished, they simply moved on. Share your thoughts on this enduring history below.